The world has changed, declared the former Culture Secretary Matt Hancock back in March. He was explaining why the government would not implement the second stage of the Leveson inquiry into press standards and regulation. Labour's deputy leader, Tom Watson, declared the decision a bitter blow to victims of press intrusion. But one man, actor, comedian, agitator, went a step further. John Cleese declared it meant it was time for him to leave the country. Cleese, of course, made his name in the 1970s, part of Monty Python, for creating that most English of Englishmen, Basil Fawlty. He's here now in a rare interview to talk Leveson and politics. But first, a reminder of some of that work. Well, he's here now. John Cleese, welcome. You haven't left the country. You haven't left the country.
No, I'm leaving in November. I think you said I'm threatening to leave, but I actually am leaving. I'm making arrangements now.
And why is that? Just talk us through
Because I'm so disappointed with so much about this country at the moment, and I put my shoulder to the... Sorry, am I interrupting you? Sorry.
It was a little off-camera chat to our camera people. Yes, I'm with you.
You're with me. I just think that so much of this country is disappointing. And I put my shoulder to the wheel on proportional representation and then on Leveson too. And when they were both kicked out by right-wing governments, I just thought to myself, all right, I give up. I'll try somewhere else.
Hang on, though. Proportional representation was a vote, was a democratic vote. You
Yeah,
mean the AV
right-wing
vote?
press lined up against it, and people who didn't really understand it were convinced by their arguments. Their arguments like, oh, it leads to weak coalition government. Would you like to have a word right now with Theresa May about weak coalition government?
But you could have
They
that
were
argument
elected
about
under
anything.
first past the post, right?
You could have that argument about any angle, any election result of all.
Oh, you
right?
could argue about anything, Emily.
Right. So you're leaving the country because...
Because I'm very disappointed with the way the country is run. And my particular beef is with the newspapers. And, of course, the Daily Mail will dismiss this as an extraordinary outburst. But I want to tell you something that's really pretty factual. The European Union every year asks 1,000 people in each of 33 different countries what their trust level is in the printed media in those countries. And they publish a report. Now, this year's that's just come out. And the country that has the largest trust is the Netherlands. And then after that, we've got Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Austria, and so forth. And then in the middle here, we've got Lithuania, Croatia, Turkey. And then right down the bottom, could I ask you just to read the last 2 or 3 countries? Malta.
Yeah, we get it. OK. So you've got the United Kingdom is the lowest one. Can I just...
Lowest out of 33.
Yes, but look, you just missed out. One of the most trusted written press countries is Albania, which comes in second. So perhaps there is a correlation between the kind of press which is robust, which creates a certain level of curiosity and cynicism.
Yes. No, it's the lying and the triviality that I object to. This is not just this year, Emily. This was the same last year. We were 33rd out of 33. It was the same the year before and the year before that. So for 4 years, we've had the least trusted press in Europe.
But least trusted does not necessarily mean not true.
No, it doesn't necessarily
It could mean
anything,
that
if you've got 23% of the people who trust it... So,
we're just going to take a little minute. Oh,
no, that was sabotaged
by the press.
By the press.
Right, so there we go.
So if you've got such a pathetic 23%, whereas the Dutch, who are pretty sensible, uncorrupt people, they trusted... What is the figure here?
OK. My point is that everyone feels like they're having a problem with the truth right now. If you insist something loudly enough on social media... Well, what does that mean, though? If you have, for example, on Brexit, you have people who are in the Remainer camp and people who are in the Leave camp, both feeling they can't trust the truth on Brexit, right?
That's right.
So all we've done is amplified this sense of mistrust, possibly by things like that. It doesn't mean that there isn't truth.
Well, this is what I feel about Brexit. One of the most depressing things about this country was the standard of debate about Brexit. It was awful. There were dreadful lies on the right about all the money that would come into the National Health Service if we went. And there was the usual thing, just scare tactics from Cameron and Osborne. You know, oh, it'll be a disaster. But that was the level of the debate. Nobody said, it's very complicated. There's a guy called Philip Tetlock, who's a university professor at the University of Philadelphia, who's done research on this. And he, over a period of about 20 years, he studied pundits in America and Canada, 284 of them, and he asked them a number of questions. Altogether, they made 82,000 predictions about what would happen in 5 years and 10 years. Let me finish, because I'm coming to the key point. Come on, Mattlis, pull yourself together. You know, the point that he made was that they were hopeless at forecasting. He said it was hardly better than chance, and that the pundits were no better than a reader of the New York Times. Okay? So what I'm saying is very few people have any idea what's actually going to happen. It's much harder to forecast the future than we think.
Yeah.
So why is everyone so passionate when they can't possibly know what the outcome is?
Because we were asked a question and I guess we had to choose a side.
Yeah, but you don't hear anybody saying, well, on one hand or on the other. Everyone is passionately one side or the other. That's why it was such a terrible debate.
That's no reason to leave a country. I mean, maybe you should stay and fight for what you believe. I don't
trust it. I don't trust the bankers. You know, they missold, that's what you have to say. You can't say swindled. They missold 80 billion.
OK. Where are you going, where you trust the bankers and you love the politics and the elections are always right?
You mean there's nowhere better?
No, I'm just asking. I'm literally asking you.
You're arguing, Mattlis, that two wrongs make a right.
No, I'm literally asking you where you're going, geographically.
Nevis.
Oh.
In the Caribbean, where I spent January and February, and it's gorgeous.
And that's not on that chart at all. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, OK, so you're going to the Caribbean.
No, the Nevis newspaper is very good.
Right.
It's about this big, but
I bet you all trust it out there, right?
What?
You all trust it. It has 100% trust, probably.
Oh, yeah, it's one of the nicest islands I've ever been on. The relationship between the races is absolutely superb. The people there are really kind. It's old-fashioned. The British educational system is there, the old-fashioned one. The children and adults are extraordinarily well educated. Okay. The weather's good the whole time.
Well, you're very lucky to be able to move to Nevis.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
You're here and you're John Cleese, so we have to talk about comedy. I want to know if
we are talking about comedy.
A little bit.
I don't make jokes. I just point them out.
What about
23% trust, right?
Where do you think if you had to choose politically what your fan base was, would you say Monty Python fans are leavers or remainers? Or completely cross-cultural?
I don't really know. I do know that Monty Python is much more popular in America than it is here.
Why is that?
And Fawlty Towers is more popular here than there. Because the BBC haven't put Monty Python out for 17 years. And I think the reason for that is that they don't want to have to compare it with a lot of modern comedy.
Because it wouldn't stand the test of time?
Well, yes. I mean, the point is, some people think Python's funny, some people don't. That's the nature of comedy, is that some people think things are funny and others don't, you know? But enough people have found Monty Python really funny over the years to say, yes, basically it's a funny program. And an awful lot of current comedy, and I've only been in this country 2 weeks this year, but I talked to everyone. I said, what's good on the BBC? What's good? And most people say there's not much that's funny.
Do you think anyone has followed now in the Python footsteps?
No, and the funny thing is, when I was talking to Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry, when they were doing their series, they said if they got into Python territory, they'd say, oh, no, that's Python. They'd back off. So normally you have a lot of copying because flattery is the sincerest form of... copying things is the sincerest form of flattery, you know? But it didn't happen, and I'm quite surprised.
I wonder whether you think... We always talk about being quite culturally divided now, both America and the UK. Do you think that has battered at a if you like, a collective sense of humour, a national sense of humour, if such a thing existed?
Well, I think that the sense of humour, people say to me, if I go to America, we love British humour, Monty Python and Benny Hill. And I want to say, well, you wouldn't necessarily put them in the same category. I think what's much more noticeable in America is the difference in sense of humour between the Midwest and the South, and then the coasts and the Great Lakes, where irony is just like British irony. But if you go to the Midwest and the South, the George W. Bush voters, basically, they have no sense of irony. And so they don't get a lot of the humour that we think is so funny.
That sounds as if you're saying they're a bit thicker.
Yes.
Oh, you are?
Well, I suppose there's a nicer way of saying it. Can you think of one?
I'm just asking the questions. But you
Come on,
do
mate,
genuinely think
what's a better
that...
word for people who have no sense of irony? Literal-minded is the word, which is very interesting culturally, because that's, of course, where the idea that the Bible should be interpreted literally came from people who were literal-minded. Complete rubbish. Can you imagine that Jesus Christ was literal-minded?
That is a discussion for another night and another time. Cleese, thank you very much. Nice of you to come in.
Oh, have we got to stop?
We have got to stop, but we've got Peter Shilton next. You can watch him.
Oh,
because we didn't even talk about football. Quickly, do you think it's